What would you do if you were driving home alone on a dark, stormy night and saw a stranger stranded by the side of the road? Most people kept driving, but one woman stopped. Evelyn Harper wasn't rich. She wasn't powerful. She was just an ordinary woman struggling to make ends meet in a small town. Yet, on one rainy night, she made a simple decision that would change her life forever. The stranger's car had broken down. His phone was dead. He had nowhere to go. So Evelyn offered him a ride, paid for his room, and expected nothing in return. The next morning, he disappeared. Months later, Evelyn lost her job, her savings ran out, and she was on the verge of losing everything. Then one day, a black luxury car pulled up outside her small cottage. Inside was a letter from the stranger, a letter revealing a shocking secret. The man she had helped wasn't who he claimed to be. And what happened next would prove that one small act of kindness can create a ripple powerful enough to change countless lives. Stay until the end for this inspiring story of kindness, fate, unexpected rewards, and the incredible truth that sometimes helping a stranger can change your future in ways you never imagined. Because the greatest miracles often begin with a simple choice: to help someone in need. Chapter 1. A rainy night and a stranger. The woman who helped a stranger. The town of Silverbrook sat quietly between rolling green hills and dense forests in the northern countryside. It wasn't the kind of place that appeared on travel brochures. There were no famous landmarks, no luxury resorts, no crowded shopping districts, just a collection of small homes, family-owned businesses, and people who had known one another for years. Life moved slowly in Silverbrook. The baker knew every customer by name. The postman stopped to chat during deliveries, and if someone's fence blew over during a storm, neighbors often showed up with tools before being asked. It was the sort of town where kindness still mattered, and perhaps no one embodied that spirit more than Evelyn Harper. At 39 years old, Evelyn lived alone in a modest white cottage near the edge of town. The house wasn't large, its paint had begun to fade. The wooden porch creaked with every step, and the roof needed repairs she couldn't afford. Yet it was home, a place filled with memories, a place she cherished despite its imperfections. Every morning, Evelyn woke before sunrise. She brewed a cup of coffee, fed the birds that gathered outside her kitchen window, and prepared for another long day of work. Life hadn't been easy, but she had learned long ago that complaining rarely solved problems. Instead, she focused on what she could control: her attitude, her actions, and her willingness to help others. A life built on perseverance. Years earlier, Evelyn imagined her future would look very different. She had dreamed of marriage, children, a bustling family home, weekend gatherings, shared holidays, the simple joys many people take for granted. But life rarely follows our plans. Her father passed away when she was young. Her mother died several years later after a long illness. Then came heartbreak. A relationship she believed would last forever ended unexpectedly. One loss after another gradually reshaped her future. For a while, bitterness threatened to consume her. She questioned everything. Why did life seem easier for others? Why did some people receive endless opportunities while others struggled constantly? Why did good people suffer? The questions never seemed to have answers. Eventually, Evelyn stopped asking them. Not because she found peace, because she realized life would continue moving forward regardless, and so she moved forward too. One day at a time, one challenge at a time, one small victory at a time. The Riverside Cafe. For nearly 12 years, Evelyn worked at the Riverside Cafe, a cozy restaurant overlooking the Greystone River. The cafe wasn't fancy. Its wooden floors creaked. The tables showed signs of age. The menu remained mostly unchanged year after year. Yet locals loved it. Visitors often returned. And Evelyn became one of the reasons why. People appreciated her warmth, her patience, her ability to remember tiny details. She knew which customers preferred extra sugar in their coffee, which elderly couples always shared dessert, which children loved chocolate milk. The small gestures mattered. People felt seen, valued, remembered. And in a world that often moved too quickly, that meant something. Her manager frequently joked that Evelyn was the heart of the cafe. She laughed whenever he said it, but secretly she appreciated the compliment, because helping people brought her genuine happiness, even on difficult days. A habit of helping. What made Evelyn unusual wasn't her kindness during work hours. it was her kindness afterward. She volunteered at community events, helped elderly neighbors carry groceries, delivered meals to people recovering from illness, organized charity drives during winter. Not because she had abundant free time, she didn't. Not because she had extra money, she certainly didn't. She simply believed people should help one another when possible. That belief guided nearly every decision she made. Sometimes friends questioned her generosity. "You need to think about yourself more," her friend Megan often said. "You give too much." Evelyn always smiled. "Maybe. You spend your weekends helping everyone else." "And when do you rest?" Evelyn laughed. "I'll rest eventually." Megan rolled her eyes. That's not an answer. Perhaps it wasn't, but Evelyn genuinely found purpose in helping others. The world felt slightly better whenever people looked out for one another, and she wanted to contribute to that, even in small ways. Storm clouds gather. One October afternoon, dark clouds began gathering above Silverbrook. The weather forecast predicted heavy rain, possibly severe storms. Most residents prepared accordingly. Businesses closed early, families stocked supplies, people hurried home before conditions worsened. By evening, the sky had transformed into a swirling blanket of darkness. Thunder echoed across the hills, wind rattled windows, rain fell in relentless sheets. Inside the Riverside Cafe, customers gradually disappeared. Only a few remained, most eager to reach home before roads became dangerous. Evelyn spent the final hour cleaning tables and organizing supplies. The storm intensified outside, lightning flashed frequently. Each burst illuminated the river beyond the windows. The scene looked almost surreal, beautiful, and slightly frightening. By 9 o'clock, the cafe finally closed. Evelyn gathered her belongings, said goodnight to co-workers, and stepped outside. Cold rain immediately soaked her jacket. The long road home. Evelyn's cottage sat nearly 20 minutes outside town. Normally, the drive felt peaceful. Tonight, it felt different. The roads were nearly empty. Rain pounded the windshield. Visibility remained poor despite the wipers moving at maximum speed. The headlights revealed only a narrow stretch of road ahead. Beyond that lay darkness. Endless darkness. She drove carefully, keeping both hands firmly on the steering wheel. The storm showed no signs of weakening. If anything, conditions continued worsening. Branches occasionally blew across the road. Water pooled in low areas. Strong gusts pushed against the vehicle. Evelyn considered stopping somewhere until the weather improved. But she wanted to get home. A warm blanket, a hot cup of tea, the comfort of familiar surroundings. Those thoughts motivated her forward. An unusual sight. About halfway home, the road curved through a heavily wooded area known as Pine Hollow Pass. The stretch was isolated. No houses, no businesses, no streetlights, only forest. Normally, few vehicles traveled there after dark, especially during storms, which made the sight ahead particularly surprising. As Evelyn rounded a bend, her headlights illuminated a vehicle parked on the shoulder, a black sedan. Its hazard lights blinked weakly through the rain. Beside it stood a man, alone, completely soaked. For a brief moment, Evelyn assumed help was already on the way. Then she noticed something concerning. The man wasn't inside the car. He stood beside it, looking down the road, as though waiting or hoping. Several possibilities crossed her mind immediately. Maybe he called for assistance. Maybe another driver already stopped. Maybe he wasn't actually stranded. Still, something about the scene felt wrong. The road remained deserted, and the man appeared exhausted. Keep driving? Evelyn instinctively slowed down, then immediately questioned herself. Stopping wasn't necessarily safe. The storm continued raging. The location was isolated, and she knew nothing about the stranger. Her practical side urged caution. Keep driving. Call emergency services once you reach town. Someone else will help. Those thoughts made sense, logical sense. Yet another thought followed. What if nobody else stopped? What if his phone wasn't working? What if he had been waiting for hours? Evelyn glanced in the rearview mirror as she passed. The man remained standing beside the disabled vehicle. Alone, in the rain, she continued driving for perhaps 30 seconds, then sighed heavily, because deep down she already knew she couldn't leave, not without at least checking, turning around. At the next safe location, Evelyn carefully turned her vehicle around. Rain hammered the roof, thunder rumbled overhead. The decision felt slightly reckless, yet somehow right. When she returned to the stranded car, she pulled onto the shoulder several yards away. For a moment, she simply sat there, watching, thinking. The man noticed her vehicle. His posture immediately changed. Hope replaced resignation. Evelyn lowered her window slightly. Cold rain blew inside. "Are you okay?" she called. The stranger approached cautiously. He appeared to be in his mid-40s, well-dressed despite the circumstances. His dark coat was drenched, water dripped from his hair, and fatigue showed clearly on his face. "My car broke down." His voice sounded calm, polite. "I've been trying to get help." Evelyn looked toward the disabled sedan. "What happened?" "I'm not entirely sure." He managed a tired smile. The engine made a noise that sounded expensive. Despite the situation, Evelyn laughed. The humor eased some of her concern. First impressions. The stranger introduced himself as Adrian Cross. According to him, he was traveling through the region when the vehicle suddenly failed. His phone battery had died earlier in the day, and because of the storm, traffic had nearly disappeared. Several cars passed, none stopped. Evelyn listened carefully. Everything seemed plausible. Still, caution remained important. She asked questions, observed his behavior, looked for warning signs. Yet Adrian appeared genuine, respectful, grateful. Most importantly, he seemed genuinely stranded. The rain intensified further. Neither could remain outside much longer. "You can't stay here all night," Evelyn said. Adrian nodded. "I know." She hesitated briefly, then made a decision. "I can take you into town." Relief immediately appeared on his face. "Really?" "Yes. Thank you." The sincerity in his voice was impossible to miss. A choice that changes everything. Adrian collected a small travel bag from the vehicle, then joined Evelyn inside her car. The warmth felt wonderful after standing in the rain. For several moments, neither spoke. The heater hummed softly. Rain continued striking the windshield. Then Adrian looked toward her. "I appreciate this more than you know." Evelyn smiled. "It's not a problem." "It is." He glanced back toward the dark road. Most people wouldn't have turned around. Evelyn shrugged. "Maybe." "No." His voice remained thoughtful. "They wouldn't." The words lingered, because deep down both knew he was probably right. Many people would have kept driving, some out of caution, others out of inconvenience. Few would have returned. Yet Evelyn had, and neither of them realized that this simple decision would become the beginning of a story neither could have imagined. A story involving friendship, opportunity, unexpected revelations, and a life-changing reward for one small act of kindness. The storm continued raging outside as they drove towards Silverbrook, but for the first time that night, neither felt completely alone. End of Chapter 1. Chapter 2, an unexpected connection. During a single evening in Silverbrook, Evelyn and Adrian share stories that create an unlikely bond. But Evelyn has no idea that the stranger sitting beside her is hiding a secret that could change her future forever. Chapter 2, an unexpected connection. The woman who helped the stranger rain continued to pour across the windshield as Evelyn Harper guided her car through the storm. Beside her sat Adrian Cross, the stranded traveler she had rescued from Pine Hollow Pass. For the first few minutes, neither spoke much. The situation felt unusual. After all, two strangers rarely found themselves sharing a car on a deserted road during a stormy night. Yet there was something surprisingly comfortable about the silence. Not awkward, not forced, simply peaceful. The heater filled the vehicle with warmth. Soft music played quietly from the radio. Outside, thunder echoed across the hills. Inside, the atmosphere felt oddly calm. Eventually, Adrian broke the silence. "You live around here?" Evelyn nodded. "All my life. And you still like it?" She smiled. "Most days." Adrian laughed. "That's an honest answer." "I try." Different worlds. As they continued towards Silverbrook, the conversation gradually deepened. Adrian seemed genuinely interested in learning about the town. He asked about local businesses, the people, the history, the community. Evelyn found it unusual. Most travelers barely noticed places like Silverbrook. They passed through without a second thought. Yet Adrian listened carefully, as though every detail mattered. When she described the Riverside Cafe, he asked questions. When she mentioned community events, he wanted to know more. When she talked about neighbors helping one another, he seemed fascinated. "That still happens?" Evelyn looked confused. "What do you mean?" "People helping each other." She laughed, of course. Adrian stared out the window. "Interesting." The response seemed strangely emotional, almost personal. The story behind the traveler. After a while, Evelyn became curious. "So what brings you through Silverbrook?" Adrian hesitated, only briefly. "Business." "What kind of business?" He smiled. "The complicated kind." She laughed. "That sounds suspicious." "Maybe it does." His smile widened. "I travel a lot. Must be exhausting." "Sometimes." The answer carried more weight than expected, as though exhaustion extended beyond physical travel. Evelyn noticed, but didn't press. Everyone carried burdens, some visible, some hidden. Just a stop in town. By the time they reached Silverbrook, most businesses had closed. The streets were nearly empty. Rain still fell heavily. Streetlights reflected across wet pavement. The town looked peaceful, almost dreamlike. Evelyn pulled into a small parking area near the town square. "So," she glanced around. "Now what?" Adrian looked toward the dark streets. "The motel." "The Willow Inn?" He nodded. "If they have room." Evelyn winced slightly. "That's the problem." "What?" "There's a regional festival this weekend." Adrian frowned. "Meaning?" "Most places are probably full." His shoulders slumped. For the first time all evening, he looked genuinely discouraged. The search Evelyn refused to give up immediately. Together they visited the Willow Inn, full. Then another guest house, full. A third location, also full. With each rejection, Adrian became increasingly frustrated. Not angry, just tired. Very tired. The storm had already made a difficult day worse. Now he faced the possibility of spending the night in his disabled car. Evelyn noticed the growing concern, and she couldn't ignore it. Finally, the owner of a small bed and breakfast on the edge of town offered a solution. One room remained available. Tiny, basic, but available. Adrian visibly relaxed. Then came another problem. The room required immediate payment. A quiet decision. Adrian reached for his wallet, then froze. His expression changed. "What is it?" Evelyn asked. "My wallet." "What about it?" "I left it in the car, the disabled car, still stranded miles away. Under normal circumstances, the situation might have been manageable. Tonight it wasn't. The storm prevented easy access, and the bed and breakfast owner needed payment, immediately. Without thinking too much about it, Evelyn stepped forward. "I'll cover it." Adrian looked shocked. "You don't need to do that. It's one night. I couldn't ask you to." "You're not asking." The owner accepted the payment. The room was secured. Problem solved. At least for now. Genuine gratitude. Outside the building, Adrian stood beneath the awning. Rain continued falling beyond the shelter. He looked at Evelyn, not casually, seriously. "You have no idea how much you've helped me tonight." Evelyn shrugged. "It wasn't a big deal. To you. To me, it was." Something about his tone felt sincere. Deeply sincere. Not exaggerated, not dramatic, just honest. For a brief moment, neither spoke. Then Adrian extended his hand. "Thank you." Evelyn shook it. "You're welcome." She assumed that would be the end of it. A stranger helped. A good deed completed. Nothing more. Coffee before goodbye. Before leaving, Evelyn noticed a small cafe across the street remained open. A rare occurrence at that hour. "Want coffee?" she asked. Adrian seemed surprised. "At midnight? Why not?" He laughed. "I suppose that's a good point." A few minutes later, they sat near the window with steaming mugs. The cafe was nearly empty. Only a few late-night customers remained. The atmosphere felt cozy, comfortable, safe, and for the first time they spoke more personally. Not about towns, or roads, or travel. About life. Evelyn's story. Adrian listened as Evelyn shared pieces of her life. Not everything, just enough. The small cottage, the cafe, her parents, the challenges she'd faced, the dreams that hadn't worked out, the disappointments, the lessons learned. She didn't speak bitterly. That seemed to impress him. Most people become hardened by hardship. Evelyn somehow remained kind, hopeful, compassionate. Adrian noticed and admired it. "You've been through a lot," she smiled softly. "So has everyone." The answer stayed with him, because she genuinely believed it. Adrian's perspective. Eventually, Evelyn asked about him. "What about your life?" Adrian stared into his coffee for several seconds, thinking, choosing his words carefully. "It's complicated. You said that earlier. Still true." She laughed. Then he surprised her. "There was a time when I trusted people easily. What happened?" His expression darkened slightly. "Success." The answer confused her. "Success?" He nodded. "The more successful I became, the harder it became to know who genuinely cared." Evelyn remained quiet, listening. People wanted things. "Money?" "Sometimes," he sighed. "Sometimes influence, opportunities, connections." His voice carried experience, painful experience. For the first time, Evelyn sensed there was much more to Adrian than he revealed, the question. As their conversation continued, Adrian suddenly asked something unexpected. "Why did you stop?" Evelyn frowned. "What? Tonight?" He leaned back. "You could have kept driving." She thought about it. The answer seemed simple, yet strangely difficult to explain. "I don't know." "Sure you do." She smiled, then finally answered. "Because if I were standing in the rain hoping someone would help, I'd want them to stop." Adrian stared at her. The simplicity of the answer seemed to affect him. No grand philosophy, no dramatic speech, just empathy, just humanity, just kindness. A sleepless night. Later that evening, they finally said goodbye. Evelyn returned home. Adrian checked into the bed and breakfast. Both assumed their paths would soon separate forever. Yet, neither slept particularly well. For different reasons. Evelyn found herself thinking about the traveller. Not romantically, not suspiciously, simply curiously. There was something unusual about him, something hidden, something he wasn't saying. Meanwhile, Adrian sat beside the window of his room, watching rain fall across Silverbrook, thinking about the woman who had stopped, the woman who asked for nothing, expected nothing, wanted nothing. In his world, such people had become increasingly rare. Yet Evelyn existed, proof that kindness still survived, proof that goodness still mattered, proof that genuine people still existed, and that realization affected him more deeply than he expected. Morning comes. The storm finally ended shortly before sunrise. Golden sunlight broke through the clouds. The town sparkled beneath the fresh morning light. Evelyn arrived at work shortly after 7. Life quickly returned to normal. Customers arrived, coffee brewed, orders filled the kitchen. The previous night's adventure already felt distant, almost unreal. Then around mid-morning, someone entered the cafe. Evelyn looked up. Adrian, freshly dressed, smiling, holding a small paper bag. He approached her table. "I wanted to return something." Confused, she accepted the bag. Inside rested a handwritten note and a small silver keychain shaped like a compass. She looked up. "What is this?" "A reminder." "Of what?" Adrian smiled. "That one good decision can change a journey." Before she could ask more questions, he stepped back. "Thank you again, Evelyn." Then he turned, walked toward the door, and disappeared into the morning sunlight. Evelyn never even got the chance to ask for his phone number, or where he was going, or whether she'd ever see him again. As the door closed behind him, she shook her head and laughed. What a strange encounter. A strange night. A strange man. And yet, something told her the story wasn't over. Not even close. Because far beyond Silverbrook, powerful events were already unfolding. Events connected to Adrian Cross. Events that would soon return to change Evelyn's life forever. End of Chapter 2. Chapter 3, Trouble Arrives. Months after the mysterious traveller disappears, Evelyn's life begins falling apart. But just when she thinks she's out of options, a black luxury car arrives at her cottage carrying news she never expected. Chapter 3, Trouble Arrives. The woman who helped a stranger out. For several weeks after the storm, life in Silverbrook returned to normal, or at least it appeared to. Every morning, Evelyn Harper woke before sunrise. She fed the birds outside her kitchen window, watered the flowers growing beside her porch, and drove into town for another shift at the Riverside Cafe. The strange encounter with Adrian Cross slowly became a memory, an interesting story. Nothing more. Occasionally she noticed the small silver compass keychain hanging beside her house keys. Whenever she did, she smiled. The traveller had been unusual, thoughtful, different. But people came and went. Life continued. At least that's what Evelyn believed. She had no idea that hundreds of miles away, Adrian still remembered every detail of that rainy night, and he had not forgotten her, not even once. Winter approaches. As autumn faded into winter, Silverbrook changed. The hills turned gold. Leaves drifted through the streets. The air grew colder. Business at the cafe slowed. Tourists disappeared. Locals stayed home more often. For many businesses, winter was always difficult. The Riverside Cafe was no exception. Still, Evelyn wasn't worried. The cafe had survived difficult seasons before. It always did. Or so everyone assumed. One chilly November morning, however, rumors began circulating through town. Rumors that made employees nervous. The owner, Harold Simmons, seemed unusually quiet. Meetings took place behind closed doors. Financial documents appeared. Conversations stopped whenever staff entered the room. People noticed, people worried, and unfortunately, their concerns proved justified. Unexpected news. 3 weeks later, Harold gathered the employees together. His expression immediately told them something was wrong. Very wrong. The usually cheerful owner looked exhausted, older somehow. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Then Harold cleared his throat. "I have some difficult news." The room became silent. Every employee listened carefully. "The cafe will be closing." The words felt unreal. Several workers gasped, others stared in disbelief. Evelyn's stomach dropped. Closing? The Riverside Cafe had existed for nearly 40 years. People couldn't imagine Silverbrook without it. Yet Harold explained everything. Rising costs, declining profits, personal health issues, retirement. The decision wasn't sudden, it had simply become unavoidable. After months of struggling, he could no longer continue. The cafe would close permanently at the end of the month. A difficult goodbye. The final weeks passed quickly, too quickly. Customers expressed sadness, employees searched for jobs. The atmosphere felt heavy, emotional. Many regular customers visited specifically to say goodbye. Some shared memories, others brought gifts. A few even cried. The cafe wasn't merely a business, it was part of the community, a place where friendships formed, where celebrations occurred, where people gathered during difficult times. Watching it disappear felt like losing something important. For Evelyn, the loss felt particularly painful. 12 years. 12 years of her life spent there. Now it was ending. And she wasn't sure what came next. After the cafe officially closed, Evelyn immediately began searching for employment. At first, she remained optimistic. She had experience, a strong reputation, excellent references. Surely something would appear. Days became weeks, weeks became months, nothing. Silverbrook offered limited opportunities. Most businesses weren't hiring, others paid too little to cover basic expenses. Several interviews seemed promising, none resulted in offers. Gradually, savings began disappearing. Small expenses became major concerns. Electric bills, groceries, insurance, mortgage payments, every dollar mattered. Evelyn cut expenses wherever possible, no unnecessary purchases, no restaurant meals, no entertainment, only necessities. Yet the numbers continued moving in the wrong direction. The cottage one evening, Evelyn sat at her kitchen table reviewing bills. The situation looked worse than she wanted to admit. Far worse. Outside, snow drifted across the yard. Inside, silence filled the cottage. For years, this house represented security, stability, home. Now it felt fragile, threatened. A notice from the bank rested beside her coffee mug. Not a foreclosure notice, not yet, but a warning. Miss enough payments and the situation would become serious. Very serious. Evelyn stared at the paper. Fear settled heavily in her chest. For the first time in many years, she felt truly uncertain about the future. Refusing to give up despite her struggles, Evelyn refused to surrender to bitterness. That wasn't who she was. Whenever possible, she continued helping others. Friends considered it ridiculous. "You need help yourself," Megan told her one afternoon. The two women volunteered at a local food drive. "You shouldn't be spending your time here." Evelyn smiled. "Why not?" "Because you have enough problems already." "Everyone has problems." Megan sighed. "You're impossible." Perhaps she was. But Evelyn understood something important. Helping others reminded her that she wasn't alone. Everyone carried burdens. Everyone fought battles. And somehow, helping others made her own challenges feel more manageable. The elderly neighbor. A few weeks later, an elderly neighbor named Mr. Dawson needed assistance repairing storm damage. The fence surrounding his property had collapsed. Several wooden sections lay scattered across the yard. The man lived alone. Fixing it himself would be nearly impossible. Despite her own difficulties, Evelyn spent an entire Saturday helping him rebuild it. The work was exhausting. The weather was cold, yet she never complained. When they finally finished, Mr. Dawson smiled gratefully. "You've always been there when people needed help." Evelyn shrugged. "That's what neighbors do." The old man studied her carefully, then said something she wouldn't forget. "One day, that kindness will find its way back to you." Evelyn laughed. "I doubt that." Mr. Dawson simply smiled, as though he knew something she didn't. The last savings. By early spring, Evelyn's financial situation became critical. Her savings account contained less money than she cared to admit. Job opportunities remained scarce. Anxiety followed her everywhere. She tried hiding it. Most people never noticed. Yet at night, when she sat alone in her cottage, the worries felt overwhelming. What if she lost the house? What if she couldn't find work? What if things continued getting worse? The questions arrived endlessly, and answers remained frustratingly absent. For the first time, hope began slipping. Not completely, but enough to frighten her. A strange morning. Then came a morning unlike any other. The sun had barely risen. Evelyn stood in her kitchen making coffee when she heard an unfamiliar sound. A vehicle, not unusual. Except this vehicle sounded expensive, very expensive. Curious, she glanced through the window. A long black luxury sedan slowly approached her cottage. The vehicle looked completely out of place in Silverbrook, especially on her quiet road. It finally stopped outside the house. A sharply dressed man stepped out. Not Adrian, someone else. Tall, professional, clearly important. Evelyn frowned. Who could possibly be visiting her? An unexpected visitor. A few moments later, a knock echoed through the cottage. Evelyn opened the door cautiously. The man smiled politely. "Miss Evelyn Harper?" "Yes. My name is Victor Lang." He offered a business card. The card looked expensive. Everything about him looked expensive. Evelyn felt increasingly confused. "Can I help you?" Victor reached inside his briefcase, then removed a sealed envelope. Her name appeared on the front, written neatly by hand. "I was asked to deliver this personally." Evelyn accepted it. The envelope felt strangely important, almost significant. "Who sent it?" Victor smiled. "I believe you'll recognize the name." Slowly, Evelyn opened the envelope. Inside rested a letter. The first line immediately caught her attention. "Dear Evelyn, I hope you remember me." Her heart skipped because she recognized the handwriting and the signature waiting at the bottom of the page. Adrian Cross, the stranger from the storm, the man she never expected to see again. The man who was apparently connected to luxury cars, business executives, and mysteries she couldn't begin to understand. As Evelyn stared at the letter, one thought echoed through her mind. Who exactly was Adrian Cross? And why had he suddenly returned? The answer would change everything. End of Chapter 3. Chapter 4. The Secret Revealed. Evelyn discovers the shocking truth about Adrian's identity and learns that the rainy night she stopped to help a stranger was far more important than she ever imagined. Chapter 4. The Secret Revealed. The woman who helped a stranger. Evelyn stood frozen in her doorway. The morning breeze drifted across the porch. Birds chirped in the distance, yet she barely noticed any of it. Her attention remained fixed on the letter in her hands. The handwriting was unmistakable. Adrian Cross. The traveler she had rescued months earlier. The stranger whose car broke down during a storm. The man she assumed she would never see again, and now, somehow, he had reappeared. Not in person, but through a letter delivered by a man in an expensive suit driving a luxury sedan. Nothing about the situation made sense. Evelyn looked up. Victor Lang waited patiently, as though he already understood her confusion. Slowly, she unfolded the letter and began reading. Adrian's letter. Dear Evelyn, first I owe you an apology. When we met, I wasn't completely honest about who I was. Evelyn immediately frowned. What did that mean? She continued reading. At the time, I felt it was important that people see me as an ordinary traveler rather than the person the world believes me to be. The words raised even more questions. The night you helped me was one of the most difficult periods of my life. I was exhausted, frustrated, and beginning to lose faith in people. Then you stopped your car. You expected nothing in return. You helped simply because someone needed help. Evelyn felt her chest tighten. She remembered that night clearly. The rain, the broken car, the exhausted traveler, the conversation over coffee. At the time, she never imagined the encounter held any special significance, yet apparently it did. A shocking discovery. The letter continued. You know me as Adrian Cross, but there is much more to my story. I am the founder and chief executive officer of Cross Global Enterprises. Evelyn blinked, then read the sentence again. Cross Global Enterprises. The name sounded familiar. Very familiar. She rushed inside and grabbed her phone. A quick search produced dozens of results. News articles, magazine covers, interviews, business awards, photographs. The face staring back from the screen belonged to Adrian. Without the rain-soaked clothes, without the exhaustion, without the uncertainty. Instead, he appeared confident, successful, powerful. The company he founded operated in multiple countries, its value measured in billions. Billions. Evelyn stared at the screen, completely speechless. The man stranded on the roadside wasn't an ordinary traveler. He was one of the most successful business leaders in the country. Why he hid the truth? Hands trembling slightly, Evelyn returned to the letter. You may wonder why I concealed my identity. The answer is simple. I wanted 1 week of normal life. No meetings, no headlines, no expectations, just space to think. Evelyn understood, at least partly. Fame and success often created barriers. People treated successful individuals differently. Some admired them, others feared them. Many wanted something from them. Perhaps Adrian simply wanted to know how people behaved when they didn't know who he was. Then came another sentence, a sentence that made her pause. That night restored something I thought I had lost. My faith in human kindness. / Adrian's struggle. The letter revealed details Evelyn never expected. Despite his enormous success, Adrian had spent the previous year facing immense pressure. His company expanded rapidly. Competition intensified. Several trusted business partners betrayed him. Friendships ended. Relationships became complicated. Everywhere he looked, people seemed motivated by profit, status, or personal gain. Gradually, he became cynical, suspicious, guarded. He questioned whether genuine kindness still existed. Then his car broke down outside Silverbrook, and a woman named Evelyn Harper turned around in the middle of a storm to help a complete stranger. No cameras, no publicity, no reward, just kindness, and that changed everything. The real reason for the visit. Evelyn turned the page. Victor remained silent nearby, clearly aware of what came next. Over the past several months, I have quietly followed your story. Evelyn's eyes widened. What? Not in an invasive way. I simply wanted to learn more about the woman who stopped that night. What I discovered only increased my admiration. Adrian described her volunteer work, her support of neighbors, her dedication to the community, the closure of the Riverside Cafe, the financial difficulties, the struggles she faced. And despite everything, she continued helping others. The realization moved him deeply. Then came the part that changed everything. An extraordinary offer. I believe people like you are rare. And I believe the world needs more people like you in positions where they can make a difference. Evelyn read carefully. Every word suddenly felt important. Several months ago, our company began planning a major community outreach initiative. The project will focus on helping struggling families, supporting education programs, funding local charities, and creating opportunities in underserved communities. She continued reading, then stopped because she couldn't believe what she saw. I would like you to lead it. Evelyn stared at the sentence. Lead it? Surely she misunderstood. She read it again. The words remained unchanged. Adrian wanted her to manage an entire outreach organization. Someone with no corporate background, no executive experience, no business degree. It seemed impossible, absurd. Yet the letter continued. You may lack corporate experience, but leadership isn't only about business. It's about character, compassion, integrity. Those qualities cannot be taught in a boardroom. Doubt and fear. Evelyn lowered the letter. Her mind raced. This couldn't be real, could it? Victor finally spoke. It's real. She looked up. What? The offer. His expression remained calm. Mr. Cross means every word. Evelyn laughed nervously. I worked in a cafe. And I've never managed anything remotely this large. Victor smiled. You've managed difficult situations your entire life. That's different. Is it? The question lingered, because perhaps it wasn't as different as she imagined. Meeting Adrian again. Several days later, Evelyn traveled to the city. The trip itself felt surreal. She had rarely left Silverbrook. Now she found herself entering one of the tallest office buildings she'd ever seen. Glass walls, polished floors, busy professionals everywhere. The environment felt completely foreign. An assistant guided her to a private office. Large windows overlooked the city skyline, and standing near those windows was Adrian Cross. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Adrian smiled, the same warm smile she remembered from the coffee shop. Evelyn, she laughed, you're really a billionaire. Adrian chuckled. That's usually the first thing people say. I thought you were a salesman. I've been called worse. The tension disappeared instantly. Despite the setting, he still seemed like the same man she met during the storm. The conversation. For nearly 2 hours they talked. Not about profits, not about business strategies, about people, communities, needs, problems, solutions. Adrian explained his vision. The organization would focus on helping ordinary people overcome extraordinary challenges. Housing assistance, food programs, scholarships, emergency relief, job training, everything designed to create opportunity, not dependency. By the end of the meeting, Evelyn felt something she hadn't experienced in months. Hope, real hope. The opportunity wasn't merely employment, it was purpose, a chance to help people on a larger scale than ever before. The decision that evening, Adrian walked her toward the elevator. No pressure, he said. Take time to think. Evelyn smiled. I already know. You do? She nodded. Yes? Adrian waited. Then Evelyn extended her hand. I'd be honored. A broad smile spread across his face. Welcome aboard. The handshake marked the beginning of a completely new chapter, one she never could have imagined while sitting alone in her cottage months earlier. And yet, the most remarkable part of the story wasn't the job, or the salary, or the opportunity. It was the reason behind it all. One rainy night, one stranded stranger, one decision to help. That simple choice had created a chain reaction neither of them could have predicted. But the greatest impact was still ahead, because together, Evelyn and Adrian were about to change thousands of lives. End of Chapter 4. Chapter 5, The Ripple Effect of Kindness. Evelyn's new role transforms her future, but the true reward comes when she discovers how a single act of kindness can spread across countless lives and create a legacy far beyond herself. Chapter 5, The Ripple Effect of Kindness. The woman who helped a stranger. 6 months after accepting Adrian Cross's offer, Evelyn Harper stood on a stage before an audience of nearly 500 people. The moment felt surreal. Only a year earlier, she had been worried about losing her cottage. She had spent sleepless nights wondering how she would pay her bills. Now she was leading one of the largest community outreach programs in the region. Life had changed dramatically, yet deep inside, Evelyn remained the same woman who had stopped her car on a rainy night to help a stranger. And perhaps that was exactly why Adrian had chosen her. A new mission. The program grew faster than anyone expected. Originally, Adrian's company planned to help a few communities, but Evelyn's leadership transformed the project. She insisted on listening first. Instead of making assumptions, she visited towns personally. She met struggling families, teachers, small business owners, single parents, veterans, retirees, students. She listened to their stories, their challenges, their dreams. Only then did she begin creating solutions. People appreciated her approach. Unlike many executives, Evelyn never treated people like statistics. She treated them like human beings, because she understood hardship herself. And that understanding made all the difference. Lives begin to change. Within the first year, the outreach program funded dozens of initiatives. Scholarships helped students attend college. Housing grants assisted families facing eviction. Job training programs created new opportunities for unemployed workers. Food assistance programs supported communities during difficult times. One project particularly touched Evelyn's heart. A small learning center opened in a struggling neighborhood where children lacked access to educational resources. The center offered tutoring, books, technology, mentorship, safe spaces to learn and grow. The impact was immediate. Students improved, confidence increased, families became hopeful, and every time Evelyn visited, she remembered why she accepted the position. This wasn't about money, it was about people. Returning to Silverbrook. Despite her busy schedule, Evelyn never forgot Silverbrook. She returned often. The town remained home. One afternoon, she visited Mr. Dawson, the elderly neighbor whose fence she had helped repair. The old man smiled when he saw her. I hear you've become important. Evelyn laughed. I don't think so. Nonsense. He pointed toward a newspaper resting nearby. Her photograph appeared on the front page. You help people across the country now. She sat beside him. I just try to do what I've always done. Mr. Dawson nodded. Exactly. Then he smiled knowingly. Remember what I told you? Evelyn immediately remembered. One day, that kindness will find its way back to you. For a moment, neither spoke, because both knew how true those words had become. An unexpected reunion. Several months later, Evelyn attended a community event in another state. After delivering a speech, she mingled with attendees. People shared stories, asked questions, expressed gratitude. Then a woman approached her. Tears filled her eyes. "Miss Harper?" "Yes?" The woman smiled emotionally. "You don't know me." Evelyn nodded politely. The woman continued. 3 years ago, my husband lost his job. We lost our home. We had nowhere to go." Evelyn listened carefully. The woman pointed toward 2 children standing nearby. "The housing program you created gave us a second chance." Her voice trembled. "My children have a home because of you." Evelyn felt her own eyes fill with tears. Moments like that made every challenge worthwhile. Every long day, every difficult decision, every sacrifice, because now she could see the impact. Not in reports, not in numbers, in people. Real people, real lives. Later that evening, Adrian joined Evelyn on a balcony overlooking the city. The event had been a success. The organization continued expanding. Thousands of lives had already been touched. Neither spoke for several moments. Then Adrian smiled. "You were the right choice." Evelyn laughed. "I still don't know about that." "I do." He leaned against the railing. "You know what's funny?" "What?" "If your car had broken down that night instead of mine, you probably would have helped someone else anyway." Evelyn smiled. "Probably." "Exactly." Adrian looked toward the city lights. "The world needs more people like that." Evelyn shook her head. "The world needs more people willing to notice kindness." Adrian considered the answer, then nodded. Perhaps she was right. The speech. 1 year later, Evelyn stood before an even larger audience. This time, the event celebrated the outreach program's anniversary. Journalists attended, community leaders attended, families whose lives had been changed attended, and Adrian sat quietly in the front row. When Evelyn stepped to the microphone, the room became silent. She smiled warmly, then began speaking. "A year ago, I never imagined standing here." The audience laughed softly. "It's true. I was unemployed, worried, uncertain about the future." She paused, then continued. "People often ask how this journey began. Many already knew the answer, yet they listened carefully. It began on a rainy night. The room grew quiet. I saw a stranger standing beside a broken-down car." She smiled toward Adrian, and I stopped. The audience smiled. Some already knew the story. Others heard it for the first time. Evelyn continued. "I didn't stop because I expected a reward. I didn't stop because I thought it would change my life. I stopped because someone needed help." Then her voice softened. "And that's the lesson. The ripple effect." Evelyn looked around the room, at the families, the students, the volunteers, the staff members, the people whose lives had intersected through one unexpected event. Then she said the words that everyone would remember. "Kindness doesn't come with guarantees. You may never know what happens after you help someone. You may never see the results. You may never receive recognition." She paused. "But every act of kindness creates a ripple." The audience remained silent, listening. And sometimes those ripples travel farther than we could ever imagine. For a moment, nobody moved. Then the room erupted into applause. People stood, cheered, smiled. Some wiped away tears, because the message was simple, yet powerful, and undeniably true. Full circle, that evening after the celebration ended, Evelyn returned home. Not to a luxury apartment, not to a mansion, but to a small cottage in Silverbrook. The same cottage she nearly lost. The same porch, the same birds outside the kitchen window. Some things had changed, others hadn't. She sat quietly with a cup of tea and reflected on the journey. The storm, the roadside encounter, the coffee shop conversation, the job loss, the letter, the opportunity. Everything seemed connected, like pieces of a puzzle finally fitting together. Yet the most important lesson remained beautifully simple. One choice mattered, one moment mattered, one act of kindness mattered. The true reward. Years later, people often asked Evelyn whether helping Adrian had been the best decision of her life. She always answered the same way. No. The response usually surprised them. Then she explained. The best decision wasn't helping Adrian. It was deciding to become the kind of person who helps others. Because that decision came first. Long before the storm, long before the opportunity, long before the reward. The act itself was important, but the character behind it mattered even more. And that was the true lesson of her story. Moral of the story, kindness is never wasted. Even when we cannot see the results, every good deed creates a ripple that touches lives in ways we may never fully understand. Sometimes helping a stranger changes their life. Sometimes it changes your life. and sometimes it changes both. The most extraordinary opportunities often begin with the simplest acts of compassion. The end. A single act of kindness can start a chain reaction that reaches farther than you ever imagined.